sure all of us have once laid our eyes on something so tempting, something so irresistible that we feel like we can't go on in life without getting it. You don't care whether it is right or wrong, you just want it in your hands. This something varies from person to person. For some, it can be some snack from the canteen, and for others, it can be something their parents probably wouldn't approve of, like an item from a video game, for example. Gandhi once said this famous quote: "The world has enough for everyone's need, but not for everyone's greed." For me, this quote really emphasizes the difference between the living situations of the rich and the poor. Let's go back to the situation mentioned earlier. If you people were to buy a video game using the precious hard earned allowance that you saved up, all you would get is the game and a possible beating from your parents. But if a poor person were to buy this video game, odds are that they probably can't afford it, and even if they could, they'll probably be starving for the entire week. So, what exactly is causing these poor people to stay poor or go even poorer? There are a lot of factors causing this issue, and I'll talk about the major ones. The first one I'll touch on is education. The level of education a person receives is often proportional to the level of their skill. With a higher level of education, a person often has more advanced skills that few workers are able to offer, justifying a higher pay. People in poverty are trapped inside this vicious cycle where they will never escape because to get good education, you need money, and to get money, you need a well paying job, and to get a well paying job, you need good education. So the cycle just keeps going on and on. Although there are usually policies of free education in developed nations, levels of education received by each individual still differ, not because of financial ability, but innate qualities like intelligence, drive, and personal ability. So these policies don't really break people out of the cycle. The next reason is the advancement of technology. As the technology of the world progresses, they begin to eliminate the need for human power. In many jobs, such as packaging and manufacturing, the machineries are becoming more and more efficient. Hence, jobs involving repetitive tasks have largely been eliminated. This really brings up the question: is the advancement of technology really the advancement of humanity? Now, on to the final cause: gender. The gender wage gap still persists to this day, and women make 82 cents for every dollar a man makes. This is largely because there are more men in senior roles than women. At the heart of the problem is an assumption that senior jobs require long hours and constant availability, and so cannot be done flexibly or part time. At this point, you're probably wondering, why do I need to care about poverty? What's the point of listening to the rest of this lecture? Well, imagine one day as you're walking home, you pass a pond where you see a little girl drowning. You look around and panic. Where are her parents? But no one is around. Only you. The pond is shallow enough so you can save her without drowning, but deep enough that she'll drown if you don't help her. But you're wearing your brand new pair of Jordans today. Surely you wouldn't want to ruin them, right? In this situation, what would you do? Save her or keep walking? If your answer is to save her, which I hope it is, then why not save billions of others drowning in the same pond by learning more about poverty?
So here's the most important economic fact of our time. We are living in an age of surging income inequality, particularly between those at the very top and everyone else. This shift is the most striking here in Indonesia. It's a global phenomenon. The wealth gap and income inequality in Indonesia is ranked 6th in the world and is growing faster than its neighboring countries. There are a lot of differences between the poor and the rich here in Indonesia. Even the people just below the top have less good health than the people at the top. So income means something very important in our society. Within our societies, we're looking at relative income, social position, or social status, where we are in relation to each other and the size of the gaps between us. As soon as we understand, we immediately wonder, what happens if the gap widens or narrows? If the income differences get bigger or smaller? Now let me give you a few numbers to place what's happening here in Indonesia. In Indonesia, 9.7% of the entire population is living in poverty. That's 26.4 million Indonesians. What's even more striking is what's happening at the very top of the income distribution. There just 10% owns 3/4 of the country's wealth. I'm not using any hypothetical data. This data was from the World Bank. So, we're living in the age of surging income inequality, especially at the top. So, what's driving it? One set of causes is political. Lower taxes, deregulation, particularly of financial services, privatization, weaker legal protections for trade unions, all of these have contributed to more and more income going to the very top. Not only that, globalization and the technology revolution are also changing our lives and transforming the global economy. They are also powering the rise of the super rich. Now, just think about it. If you were an energetic entrepreneur and you had this brilliant new idea or a fantastic new product, you would have almost instant, almost frictionless access to a global market of more than a billion people. As a result, if you're very smart and very lucky, you could get very, very rich very, very quickly. Now, I'm going to show you what that does to our society. We have collected data on problems with social gradients, the kind of problems that are more common at the bottom of the social ladder. The more unequal countries like Indonesia, they are doing worse on all kinds of social problems. One of them is violence. A new research suggests that increased inequality can lead to higher risk of violence, racism, and also extremism. But the question is how? We see a vicious cycle. The larger the inequality in a society, the more privileged group supports the hierarchy. People in this group will also be more willing to use violence in order to keep their position, said Associate Professor of Psychology Lot Thompson at the University of Oslo. Another one is mental illness. This is because poor mental health is more likely to affect people who are subject to social and economic disadvantage. And more unequal societies, like the ones in Indonesia, are more likely to have higher levels of mental illnesses. From here, we can say that mental illness and violence are closely related to inequality. Now, what can be done to narrow the gap? It is possible that government policies will, in the long term, narrow the income gap. Infrastructure projects, which are labor intensive, support for labor intensive industries, rising salaries of government employees, or even the controversial increase in the minimum wage, and various social programs and health and education could actually help reduce income inequality. But given the extreme inequality in Indonesia, the impact of these programs would be insignificant.
Did you know that the richest 1% in the world is wealthier than the bottom 90%? They own twice as much compared to those 90% people. First, we need to ask ourselves, what is wealth, really? Well, it is all of your assets, all of the things that you own, minus all your liabilities. Assets are things like your car, your house, your savings account, if you own other properties, and your business. And that, the two times gap, is partially because the 90% people did not have access to it for years. Well, if you're wondering, why are we talking about it now? In 2020, in the midst of a global pandemic and a looming recession, inequalities are really laid bare across the world. That being said, we have to find a solution for it. Now, imagine this. You are one of the richest 1%, and your friend is the bottom 90%. How would you feel? Would you want to help them? Do you want to solve the inequality between us? Now, let's switch the example. You are the bottom 90% and your friend is the top 1%. How differently would you feel? So, about that, we should do everything possible to make the world a better and more livable place for us and everyone else. Although we cannot fully eradicate the wealth gap in society, we can still lessen it and try our best. Now, if you're that friend on the top 1%, we should make our friend be involved in decision making processes in order for us to work its way out of poverty, particularly when it comes to getting a say in the things that decide your position in society. Then, imagine if everyone in the world does that. I guarantee they would feel safer and more acceptable. Following that, we should also build resilience. Poverty is most likely to occur when there is a high degree of marginalization and danger, with risk referring to a person's or group's level of insecurity as well as the hazards they face. To counteract this, we must ensure that the most disadvantaged individuals and societies will develop resilience. Have you ever wondered if climate change really has an impact on people? Well, actually, there are loads. For example, climate change results in more natural disasters, and that could destroy homes, farms, eradicate our livelihoods and families. So, to answer that, yes, we should really protect the environment. You guessed it. Climate change also contributes to the wealth gap. Now that it is mentioned, considering the size of that gap, it is critical for us, especially the richer 1%, to take action. If you're wondering how, we got you. We can donate to the people who are suffering and have no access to education, as education is a really big cause of wealth inequality. Education improves skills and abilities, reduces risk and insecurity, and corrects some of the imbalance that result from marginalization, breaking down barriers to education, creating access in remote areas, supporting teachers in their work to deliver quality education, and ensuring that education is available to children living in fragile contexts are just a few of the key areas of focus for ensuring that education is truly for all. I will end this with a quote. As Nelson Mandela once said, we must work together to ensure that equitable distribution of wealth, opportunity, and power in our society. This is such a powerful quote that we should all never forget. So, that is it from us today. Thank you for listening and have a great day.